Jen, I see you. You're in my hello. I haven't seen you in a while. So nice to have you here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We are so happy to have this conversation and to open up to some beautiful states of awareness. This is meant to be a live demonstration, and the difference there is that it's an embodied experience. We really want to give you a taste of what we do when we get together, when we gather together. And I've got some big intentions for all of you, and I hope you have some big intentions for yourself. But what we will do is a couple things. What I'd love to do to start with is a breathing exercise, really, really simple. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking 3 nice, big, deep breaths and allowing those breaths to relax us, to get us into our bodies. So at your own pace, breathing in and breathing out. And when you're ready, breathing in again. And breathing out. And again, breathing in. And breathing out. And again, 3 more deep breaths. And what I want you to do is just give yourself a nice squeeze, like a nice hug, squeeze, just something to really feel the embodiment of you in this moment. We often don't give ourselves hugs, so that might be the way it feels, but just 3 squeezes and some breathing along with that. You can kind of time it if you'd like. Just notice that breathing in and breathing out as you squeeze your arms. And then one more thing that we're going to do is just expanding, because we can kind of get tightened up during the day. And so we're going to use the breath, and we can imagine that when we're breathing in, we're kind of pulling our arms in, breathing in and breathing out and expanding our lungs. Or it might be the other way around. I'm not a yoga teacher, but just notice what feels good. Maybe it's breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. And just notice if you want to stretch or you feel inclined. Just notice how that feels in your body. Breathing in and breathing out. And taking a moment just to really feel what that feels like. To bring that oxygen in. Many of us are shallow breathers. We get busy, we don't notice, but just notice what it feels like to be breathing and really oxygenating our bodies. Awesome. And even if you want to make this a little bit of a meditation, what I've done is I've written some notes that I want to share before we dive into this, because I feel like with this experience, there's so many things I want to share, and it's just easier if I treat it like a meditation. And so if you want to close your eyes or just get comfy, cozy for a moment, I'll give you a little background on what we're going to do today, and then we'll go into the more traditional presentation with some slides I've got for you. So I'm Lisa Peterson. So happy to be with all of you. And we've put together a really special program for you. It's perfect for anyone who's been around long enough to know the value of committing yourself to a new goal. In this case, let's say financial freedom, or what I'm going to call financial enlightenment in this exercise that we're doing today. This is about activating your superpowers when it comes to money and having money flow into your life because of the commitment that you have to getting things where you want them to be. starting at the inner experience and going to the outer experience. My intention is to show you how to gain clarity about what you most want to create for yourself and embody the visions and the understanding and the clarity that you gain through this call, and walk away with some ideas of how you can take what you've seen here and take it into action steps. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that there's a good chance that you realize that there is something that's missing in your life. Like, it might be more money, it might be more peace of mind, but there's something more that may seem elusive in your life, but you know that there's something here. There's some opportunity to bring more into your life. We'll be talking about receiving more today, but just opening up to the possibilities that there's something here for you, that there's something that called you into this experience that you're really excited about, that you want to create more of in your life. And when we make decisions that I think each of you are making in your life by even just showing up and being here today, it is a big step, because while many of us are experts in different areas of our lives, there is, for many people on the planet, this elusive feeling about what's possible when it comes to my finances, or this idea of financial freedom. Like, what's possible for me? Can I go after something more than what I have today? Is that going to work for me? And so there's a bit of risk in stepping outside of your comfort zone. And we all know that money can be something that can bring up feelings of fear, bring up feelings of discomfort. And I want you to know that I understand that. I totally get it. I have led a life where I felt that for much of my life, which is what inspired me to be here doing this work now, because I wanted to move out of what I called scarcity mindset and into abundance. And there was some seed of potentiality within me that kept causing me to take one step and then another step and then another step to ultimately creating the life that I've created for myself. It is my greatest wish to be able to share what I've learned in my own journey with others, because it has had such a profoundly positive impact in my life and the life of others who have dove into the work and have been doing it for up to 5-6 years. We'll talk about a little bit of that today, but I want you to know that you're safe here. I understand there is no judgment. And if anything, I want to encourage you to have ultimate compassion for yourself as we have this discussion, because like I said, sometimes when we go outside of our comfort zone, we're very vulnerable. And also in the course of today's conversation, there may be realizations of things that you wish you had done, or things that you wish you could change from the past. But what I'm inviting you to do is to really be compassionate and loving and supportive towards yourself, no matter what, because that's how we're going to really make the kind of changes I think we all want to make in our lives. I also want to say that the things that we're going to be talking about, I've been practicing for many years, and nothing that I teach is meant to be an instant fix, or, overnight everything is changed. It is something that I've put into practice, like I said, step after step after step. But even though it takes time, the big thing that I want everyone to be thinking about is that whatever the states of your reality, those do not have to be the states that you necessarily identify yourself by. So one of the things we'll talk about is scarcity. And I truly believe that scarcity is a condition, kind of like an affliction, and that we do not have to live with that mindset no matter what's happening in our life, that we can actually change our perspective and make a huge impact in our daily living experience, as well as our experiences with money. And so I will also be sharing tonight And maybe it'll come up in the questions, just the fact that my own path has not been rainbows and unicorns. There have been numerous challenges and difficulties that I have encountered on my journey. And I share that because I think that a lot of folks who talk about money don't always talk about how much time changes can take to take place. And they're not always totally forthcoming of the story behind the curtain. And so we'll get into that a little bit, because I think that by knowing the fact that this isn't necessarily easy, especially when we go outside of our comfort zone, that might give you more energy to continue forth, even if it takes time to make changes. So the way that I'll start this conversation, just kind of bring us all together, and feel free to comment about these things. Like if something resonates or you're like, yep, that's me, we want to hear that. That helps us be connected. So who can this conversation help? I thought about this: empathetic, heart-centered people, pretty much everyone who comes here, open-minded, growth-oriented, an interest in the inner journey, a desire for more money, and especially the freedom that goes with it. There's an understanding or a thought that maybe scarcity is a condition that you've had to you've had experiences with, and there's a willingness to see the both and rather than the either or. Some of the challenges, and I'll talk about this in two ways: the money challenges, the practical challenges I see a lot of folks talk about when they come to this work is, wanting to earn more money or noticing that there's a pattern of under earning, saving more money, how to do it without feeling restricted to create more freedom in your life, investing more money and knowing how to invest, creating a plan for the future, retirement, and then being able to activate that plan. There's a lot more, but those are some of the top challenges. And then the inner challenges are things like worrying about money, scarcity mindset. A lot of folks struggle with stepping out of the box of traditional earning and figuring out how to create other income sources for themselves, limiting beliefs about oneself and one's potential, taking more risk, being too cautious, equaling low returns, or losing out on opportunities that you want to be able to seize when they come to you, but rather than being frozen with fear, being able to lean forward. And then also something I'm noticing a lot right now is burnout, especially from this past year. And how do I get my mojo back? How do I get inspired to move forward and to make some changes and to explore uncharted waters? The promise of the work that I have created and what we're doing tonight together is my wish is to help you gain clarity about transmuting from scarcity to abundance. And also, I will say that the overarching vision in this work that I make a commitment to myself and to those who are drawn to working with me is: how can we add $1 million in value to one's life? And I invite you to lean into that kind of thought for yourself in this moment. And it'll come up a few times as we go forward. While $1 million seems like a lot of money, when you look at our life, depending on how long it's been and how much time we've got, we can break it down. Doesn't have to all be just happening in 1 year, but I'm just encouraging the possibility of what might my life look like if I became more open to having the flow of money. If you've read my book, The Mindful Millionaire, you will also see that I don't just define, millionaire by being a net worth of $1 million. It's really about what causes you to feel empowered like you are a millionaire. And so our agenda today, I'm going to be talking a bit about money as energy, wealth creation. We're going to go through this practice that I mentioned, where we're going to stand and step in these 6 different realms of possibility that is inspired by the 6 stages of financial wealth and well-being that you all got sent. And we're going to talk about how can we create more momentum in our lives, if you're curious about implementing this or taking it to the next level. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. And that Q&A, I want to be really clear, I am more than happy to answer questions about anything, and I will stay on as long as folks have questions. So during the course of this conversation, we're not going to stop until we get to that point. But I can't wait for the questions that you ask. Like, really go outside of your comfort zone. Anything goes. You can ask me anything. I'm a wide open book, and I'm more than happy to also tune in to some gifts that I have around awareness, especially if you don't know where you're stuck or you're trying to figure out some things. If I'm going to help you through the energy work that I do, the only thing that I would ask is I'm not as strong by looking at questions in chat. You would actually need to at least give me a voice because I'm clairaudient. And so when I hear your voice and you start to talk about it, I can tune in and help you get more clarity about what you're struggling with. So I'm more than happy to do that at the end, but that's the only requirement. And then also, like I said, these will be recorded, but they'll only be available for a few days. And I mean, the cool thing about that is if you ask a question, a lot of times people want to go back and listen because it's a lot of information to take in, and you'll have that opportunity. So definitely write down your questions, be brave, take advantage of this opportunity because I'm telling you, it could be life-changing. And I'm super excited to see what comes through. Okay, so let's start by talking about energy. And I'm sure everyone's heard this before about money is energy, but I'm going to add a little different twist to it, which is talking about value expression as energy. And what I want to really inspire everyone to be thinking about is that the other day I was on a call with a group and I was coaching them, and they were new to my work, and several people talked about money, and they were like, well, how can I get, like, as long as I don't have to really deal with money, money is icky. Money is laden with problems. Money has all these negative things. And I was like, well, really, that's your projection onto money. It's not money that is the bad thing, it's the thing that we project onto it. Now, bad people do bad things with money as just with anything else. Like, it's not the money itself that is the bad thing. Money is simply energy that courses through it's like the lifeblood of our economic system. And we get to decide what that energy represents in our lives. And it isn't like rocket science to say that if you think money is icky or bad in any way, that is going to show up in your relationship with money. So it's good to explore that, even just in this moment. How do you feel about money? If anybody wants to chat or kind of mention, like, what is that feeling that you feel when you think about money? Maybe you think of it as energy. For me, I talk about money is love in the book. It's whatever we want to give it is what we're talking about. But the slight twist here, when we add in this idea of value expressed as energy, and I spent some time talking or thinking about how I wanted to explain this today. But when we look at the richest people on the planet, that's the easiest way for me to kind of make this point. We realize that they are creators of value. Money is coming to the richest people on the planet because of the value that they're creating, or the perceived value. People are paying them money and the value is being created. People don't just pay their money for nothing. They pay for convenience, right? They pay for added life experience. They pay for whatever it is. But when we see that money is basically the energy exchange for value being created in the world, this is a really important thing that I think gets left out, especially in the kind of self-help stuff. Nobody talks about this kind of thing, but we get really practical to start in this conversation. And I just want to be clear. Money comes from value being created in the world. Now, granted, there's plenty of exceptions to that, but I just wanted to set the tone so that if we want more money, we always want to look at how can I create more value, whether that be in a job or as a business owner or in some other way. Even something as, not like investing in the market. it comes down to the decisions that are being made of what companies are providing the most value. And you get rewarded by that value increasing of those companies that you invest in, for example. But we also want to talk about not just the external world and the value being created, we also want to think about what's happening inside of us. I recently heard Susie Orman speak, and I pulled this quote out of her talk because I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Susie Orman has been working, she was a financial advisor like me many years ago, and then she went into obviously all kinds of like radio and TV and working with Oprah. But she said, money is a physical manifestation of who you are. And I thought that was really interesting because I do feel the same way for some of the reasons I've already explained, where how we are being in our life has a lot to do with our experiences with money. And money becomes a manifestation, especially in the world that we live in, where money is so important. Unfortunately, many people end up getting their identity wrapped up inside of the relationship with money. And that's not what I'm saying here. Like, that's very different, can be interpreted, or we could think of it that way, but I want to point that out. Because actually, when we see money as a representation of our value in the world, things become very, very skewed. In fact, I would say, and I'll show you a slide later, that that's more indicative of scarcity mindset than anything. Like, money is not a barometer. The best way I could say it is money is not a barometer of the value that you have. Your value is limitless. It is not going to be assessed by money. It is not to be like a yardstick to see how good of a person you are. Like, that's not what I'm teaching. And I just want to make that point because I can get really simply kind of misunderstood. And I just want to make sure I'm really clear. But when we think about our experiences of the money and kind of how it shows up in our lives, let's face it, you're the one who earns it, owns it, saves it, spends it, and invests it. It does have a lot to do with like how you're showing up in the world and what you want to do with it. And whatever's going on inside of you can easily get projected out onto your money. One way, and I think Susie said this too, you and your money are one and the same. Mark, I understand. There are some things I'm not even going to try to explain about things like Twitch streamers. And, sometimes I do think about this comment about sort of YouTube or all these different folks that are doing things out there in the world. A lot of things in the world, on the internet especially, is very entertainment driven these days, right? So if you provide and even split seconds of entertainment to others, there is money associated with that. So that's kind of where that money is coming from. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't think I could completely understand. So we're having a big windstorm, and I shut my windows and doors, and now it's really warm. So give me 1 second. I think the wind stopped, so that's good. So, okay. So let's talk for a moment about scarcity and prosperity, because if you've read my book or you've followed me for a little while, you know that I talk about scarcity a lot. And so I'm trying to simplify it in the interest of time right now. So I pulled up some pictures. They're worth 1,000 words, right? So on the left, we have scarcity. On the right, we have prosperity, just to make this simple. But what I have found, going back to our experiences with money, is if, like Susie said, money is a physical representation of who you are, what we both would agree on is the fact that when we are operating from a scarcity mindset, that dominates or can dominate our relationship with money. Flip side, prosperity mindset. When we're operating from a prosperity mindset, that can inform how we're engaged with money. The big transformation that many of us are trying to make in our lives is understanding, where is scarcity playing out? How is it affecting my decisions? And how can I make different choices? How can I ask myself different questions? Because what's so funny is scarcity is so It's not funny, it's sad, it's very insidious, it's very unconscious, it's very hidden inside of our psyche. We live in a society that has really kind of grabbed onto scarcity ways of thinking. And so a lot of times we don't even know that some of our behaviors are very scarcity oriented rather than prosperity oriented. So we're constantly trying to learn and notice, where is the scarcity showing up and how can I transform it? The other thing that is interesting, if anyone's a fan of this book by James Clear, Atomic Habits, he talks about a couple things that are really profound when you smash them up against the study and the research that I've done around scarcity. So the first is that we often underestimate how the decisions that we make on a daily basis affect the grand scheme of our lives, because we're like, oh, no big deal that I'm going to eat a donut for dinner. Oh, no big deal that I'm, gonna not exercise today. And those things aren't a big deal. But what happens is we downplay the negative sort of, and don't realize the compounding effect of those decisions on a daily basis. And so what he talks about with our habits, and what was so interesting to me, is that we can either be engaged in a positive compounding life or a negative compounding life. So you've heard of compounding interest, which is, you put a certain amount of money in and you get some passbook savings and it grows over time in a positive way. In this case, if we have scarcity mindset and we're doing something over and over again, it can be making a huge impact in our lives, even though they're little teeny decisions that we're making daily. So it gives us a negative compounding effect. And it's, I think, the number one reason why when people wake up and say, why don't I have more money? It is because of this negative compounding effect. Because what I have seen in my life is, I knew this and I've been researching it and I've been studying it for years and years. And what I started to see is if I become really conscious and I don't get too focused on the immediate outcome of what I want to have happen, because that's the other thing is we want instant gratification. Money doesn't really support that. Typically, it's like the long haul. It's the daily decisions that we're making that compound in a positive way. So the more prosperity mindset we do on a daily basis, that pays off both in the short term as well as really big in the long term. So I'm going to pause there for a second. Does that make sense? I know, Jessica, we haven't talked about this before, but any thoughts or clarifications as I take a sip?
I think you presented it very well. I like that. I've never seen it, as a negative compounding. You always hear about the compound interest and think about it going that way, but it's true. As something can go up, it can also go down. So I like that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. The other piece about scarcity, and I really call it a paradigm is a collection of beliefs that inform the way we think about the world. A lot of our scarcity tendencies, our scarcity patterns start early in life, and they come from fear. They come from, lots of different fears: fear of survival, fear of taking care of ourselves, fear of being safe. If you've done any of my chakra meditations, you know that I teach things in the form of chakras of how can we move out of fear and into a state of peace, of awareness, and not kind of living in that. But just knowing that that's why we do that. The other piece is if you're governed by scarcity, your money and your life are going to reflect that same paradigm. So scarcity is going to be affecting all the different things that are showing up in your life. The other big thing about scarcity is when we're afraid of things in our lives, which scarcity, like we said, negative compounding, you're actually going in the opposite direction of what you want. We close our eyes to the good. We close our eyes to the possibility. And we, some of us, it's frozen. Some of us, there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Like all these different fear responses keep us from taking the positive actions that we want to take. A great picture of just the difference between when we're in flow and we're in prosperity is on the left side of the picture, just this waterfall cascading, just kind of going in flow. Whereas when, a dam is kind of blocked up, this is what I can see happen for folks is there's all these ideas, there's all these exciting things, there's all this stuff that you want to do, but you never feel compelled to take the next step because the risk seems insurmountable. Can folks relate to that kind of feeling? It's like, where do I start? As I mentioned, I've had a lot of fun over the years using the chakras to teach money because I think for a lot of folks, um, money is intimidating and we're really interested in kind of what's going on, like why are the struggles there. I'm not going to go into that in this presentation today, but I just wanted you to mention that it's there. And this is what informs a lot of the work, because when I dove into the chakras, I realized that it's not like we just have one scarcity problem. For many of us, the scarcity shows up, like I said, in different ways. And the more we understand that, the more as we become aware, the easier it is for us to catch ourselves when we are falling back into patterns that aren't helping us. Like I mentioned, there was going to be this slide that explained a little bit, a few of the things that you can compare back and forth. I said scarcity mindset is thinking about money as a measure of worth for yourself and for others. Money handled unconsciously, avoided, or hoarded. Limited supply. If you have more, then I end up with less. Underneath all of these kind of thoughts and these feelings, I have noticed a pattern of this feeling like we are not enough. And it just gets kind of snowballs as it collects over time. And it shows up in these different ways. But at the core, this is the big thing that I think all of us are moving through, to reaching this state of prosperity where we see money is a tool that helps us live and enable a fulfilling life. We're able to make conscious decisions. There's a sense of infinite supply. I also want to be very sensitive about this. Infinite supply does not mean that there's like plenty of resources and we can just waste. It's not like that. It's a sense that there is plenty to go around, that it's not something that we have to be worried about, but being conscious and careful and wise and aware of the planet, Mother Earth, and taking good care of her is not in direct opposition to this idea of abundance. It's like we have such harmony with the planet. We have such respect that it is a completely different way of looking at the world and the resources that we have available. And we'll talk about that when we do the exercise. And then this, I am enough. So again, we're moving from scarcity into possibility. And so what I wanted to do is I want to go into this exercise. So we're going to go straight. Well, I'll leave you with this. You don't solve the condition of scarcity with money. You solve it by understanding what you do with your money, how money shows up in your life. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do this exercise. If you want to do it standing up, I think you'll get the most out of it. You don't have to, but I do this exercise in my retreats often. And it's a little spin because this model that I sent out to everybody is new. Like this is something that we've just created in the past few weeks to model the steps of awakening that we go through as we move out of scarcity and into what I'm calling financial enlightenment. And what I want to do in this exercise, if you want to stand up, you can. If you don't, you can just have this be a visual exercise that you're doing in your mind. The reason that it's cool to walk through it is I want you to notice the embodied experience of each of these stages. And when we come back through the steps, you'll also get a moment to see what it feels like when you start to go backwards. So it can be very powerful in awakening an understanding of how we put limitations on ourselves. We have adopted conditioning that we don't even realize we have. And so I'm inviting you to go outside of your comfort zone to see what's there for you to see about your own experience with prosperity and scarcity for that matter. So the way it works, like I mentioned earlier, we'll probably spend 10, 15 minutes on this. I put some paper down on the ground here just so that I can monitor my steps. Uh, but what we'll do is we'll start at the first step. And if you're going to stand up, the first thing I want to mention, because you might not have done this before, if you like to close your eyes when you're standing, just make sure that your knees are bent and you have a really steady stance. You don't need to close your eyes, but you might find that, and you could also have a chair next to you that you're holding, whatever it takes to just feel steady and be able to stand in one spot with your eyes closed as you listen to me describe this particular feeling. And allow yourself to go there, even if you don't live in scarcity anymore, or even if you feel like you've made a lot of strides. Perfect. I want you to notice where you've come from and where you're going so that you can feel these states of awareness, because you'll also get awarenesses around how far you've come, like the progress that you've made. So let's take a couple minutes and just get set up. If you want to put something down on the ground, I'll give you a couple minutes and I'll watch and see. So I'm going to turn off the slideshow. Okay, it looks like most of you are ready. So awesome. So what we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to go to the first step. Mine's back here, so hopefully you can hear me. And getting into that first step, just like I said, bending your knees, taking some nice deep breaths. And just noticing that we're gonna, let's see, taking a moment just to take stock of your life wherever you're at. It feels like that would be really helpful. So this is kind of before you even start the first step, just noticing, how do you feel based on the discussion today? Where are you at when it comes to scarcity and prosperity? Just notice what it feels like. You may have already reviewed this worksheet and you already have an idea of where you're at on this chart. Just notice what comes up to you and take a moment to feel what it feels like to be where you are today. Maybe you've made some big strides in your life. Maybe you're ready to kind of leap forward and make some big changes. Just notice how it feels right now to be in your own shoes with whatever you've created in your past. And breathe into that. And from there, I invite you to go to that first step. And this first step is about financial struggle. And maybe it's been a really long time since you've been in it, or maybe it's happening for you right now. But I want you to notice how it feels to be in this stressful situation with money. Maybe it feels like a shrinking. In this situation, there's like a low to negative net worth, little to no tracking in place, no mindfulness. Maybe you're really stressed and worried all the time. Just notice if there's ever been a time in your life, and maybe not, just see what comes up. Notice how it feels in your body. If there's certain areas that you immediately kind of feel some discomfort, just notice what that feels like. What it feels like to be living in deep sense of scarcity. And we don't have to stay there for very long. So once you've got that feeling, that's all we need. So next we're going to go to financial awareness. So I want you to take a nice big step to the next step in the journey. And here we're becoming more aware of what it means to take care of ourselves. What that means to start to receive. Maybe this is a time in our lives where we got a job and we had been struggling financially. We got a job and all of a sudden money started to come in. And so this sense that there was enough money to meet your expenses, maybe there wasn't a lot left over, but the scarcity thoughts were releasing. And if there were scarcity thoughts, there was an awareness of them, but they weren't controlling you all the time. Maybe you were sleeping better at night, just noticing, oh, there's something here for me. But this idea of receiving. So maybe if a check were to come and be given to you, just notice how much that check would be in this state. If you were receiving a check as you were gaining this stage of financial awareness, what would it look like? How much money would be on that check? Notice how it feels in your body. Maybe there's something else being activated differently than before, or maybe it's the same area. The thoughts that would come into your mind, the feelings, and also notice the desires that come when you just start to have this sense of there's enough money coming in to take care of what I need. How that feels. Next, we're going to move into this, like another step forward into what I'm calling financial comfort. This is when your receiving starts to expand even more than before. An increasing positive net worth with surplus. The income is greater than your expenses. You might be investing, saving money in your 401k. You can feel this sense of like what I'm calling net worthiness. Like, I got this. I'm getting the hang of it. This is fun. If you were to receive a check with this state of net worthiness, and maybe you're looking back, because this is something you've already gone through, just notice how much would that check be that you're receiving. Just take the first thing that comes into your awareness. And then again, notice if there's a feeling like scarcity, is it still present here for you? And if so, where does it show up in your body? It's at this stage of financial comfort where there's more attention being paid to the mind and the thoughts, controlling the thoughts, that you have more power than you might have realized to change how you think and feel. Gaining a sense of control in your life and with your money. And there may still be an area that doesn't feel comfortable. So notice where that is and what that feels like. And also notice like what feels really good here to you. Is it a sense of excitement, anticipation? Like what lights up for you when you think about financial comfort? What are you no longer worried about? Maybe there's some things that you can do now that you couldn't do before, and just notice what those are or were and how that feels. Notice how power shows up here. Or maybe there's still some fear about having too much power. Just notice what is coming through. Notice what desires you have from this state of awareness. Notice it if there's permission, if there's any question of permission to go for more. I can feel that in this moment, that this next step that we're going to be taking for a lot of us is about giving ourselves permission to take the next step into financial growth. So when you're ready, notice what it feels like to take that next step and step into this next state of being. Financial growth, growing net worth as a result of creating a cash flow surplus. You have tracking in place, there's strategic planning. There's this strong sense of net worthiness. And notice how big sums of money start to come in. Again, see that check appear and how much is on that check. Trust whatever that number is. It's showing you what this financial growth stage would look like for you or already has. Feel the receptivity of receiving that check. So depending on how you feel about that number, notice if you can allow yourself to really receive it. Like, this is mine and it's okay. And I'm excited about the potential of what this means in my life. Notice what's happening inside of your body. You get butterflies. Is there fear that comes up about having too much success? Just notice what's coming up for you. Do you feel more powerful? Will you give yourself permission to feel that power? Not forcing power, but just love power, presence power, fantastical, magical power, whatever you want to give that power. Notice that that's within your control. But here we're looking, is there any resistance to this stage of receiving? Notice the surplus that's coming in and see what comes to you with that surplus. Are you thinking about investing? Are you thinking about what can you buy? Are you thinking about giving it to others? Notice whatever's coming as you reach this stage of financial growth, big financial growth. And these next two levels, they might feel like a big leap to you, but I want you to really play with it. It may be that you actually have to bring someone to mind who is inspiring to you. Don't bring folks that you're thinking are greedy and selfish. Bring really inspiring people. Oprah is one of those folks that has inspired me over the years. But think about someone who has a lot of money, who inspires you, or you see is very successful, whatever it takes, so you can take the next step into financial freedom. So you take that big step. And this is where we're at this stage where there's no more debt, right? We have incredible mind awareness. We are open to receiving. There doesn't feel like there's a lot of obstacles. Notice what happens as you step into this phase, this stage of awareness, of financial freedom. What does it mean to have no more debt? Everything is paid off. Your assets are starting to be in this position of being able to support you. You don't have to work anymore. You can choose to work, and many of us do, but like, just notice what that means for you. What could that mean for you? And also bring it into the body awareness and see if there's any points of resistance or just sheer joy. Feel how it feels to be at this stage of awareness. Notice the grace and the gratitude that you feel. Notice your desire to give. Like, notice what is happening for you at this stage. What's coming up? Can you give yourself permission to receive? And if there's something standing in your way, just notice that, but don't get attached to it. Just notice it. That's interesting. And we're going to take one more step. And we're just going to allow this next step to really be this state of however we perceive enlightenment. So it's beyond, the scarcity oriented patterns of the human condition. We are just moving into this divine space of unconditional love. So when you take that next step, yes, the money is there, but it's so much more, right? It's showing up in every aspect of your awareness, unconditional love permeating every part of your life. Money is no longer something that you worry about. If anything, you're so focused on giving away that might be something that you get concerned about because you want to help so many people. Just notice what that might feel like. How can I be of service to others? Notice how it feels to be the fullest expression of you in this moment that you can conceive, that you can feel, that you can open up to possibility. And that you're open to receiving all of it without judgment, without guilt, without bias, without regret, just being you in the sense of pure conscious awareness, unconditional love. Even though you may not totally believe me in this moment, this is the truest state of you. All of these stages are you, but this one is the closest to your highest self. She, he, guiding you all the time to this state of awareness. Whether you have money or you don't, this is your true state. And so in a moment, I'm going to invite you to revisit this going backwards and just noticing what it feels like when we come from this expansion and we go back in. So we're going to start at that step far out. We're going to take a step back to financial freedom and just notice what financial freedom feels like in this moment. All the debt's paid off. There is great mindfulness and awareness and giving. But just notice if anything changes in that one step. Or if it even has to. Notice that. Notice any conditioned patterns that say that you can't bring that other state with you. You get to control this part. You decide who goes to this next step of financial growth. In this state, there were big sums of money coming in, giving, gratitude. But just notice, who are you at this state? Who do you choose to be? Regardless of what's happening with the money. And the money's there too. Again, another step into financial comfort. This is increasing our, the positive net worth with a surplus of the income greater than the expenses. Just notice what happens. Interesting, I feel a little restriction coming in around my belly. Just notice, because these are the ways that we show up in our world. Just notice where the feelings might be as we're going backwards into financial awareness, slightly positive net worth, our expenses meeting our income. Taking a nice deep breath, noticing what we want to choose for ourselves. And then, financial struggle. But again, I want to take you back to the highest point for a moment, because I want to leave you in that state, in this state of financial enlightenment. So if you want to walk back over there, I want you to just feel that state of awareness in this moment, that this is the true you. And this exercise was just showing you different ways, different things that are happening probably subconsciously in your life as it pertains to money. And that you are true limitless potential. And if there were some things that came up, what I'm going to invite you to do now is take a few minutes to come back to your chair and write down any observations or things that you noticed. How you felt, what happened for you, how open to receiving you are. And feel free too, if you want to leave any notes in chat, but I want you to be able to chronicle them in your own journal too, so you capture them. Okay, that took way longer than. Okay. So in the interest of time, it's so funny because the yin space, just complete loss of time. The yang is like, stay on time, Lisa. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing that. Yeah. Hadn't done the exercise before because that model is new. But like I said, we've done that exercise before in retreats in a different way. And so I wanted to play with that today because I think that, again, I know that the scarcity story isn't who we truly are. I know that the abundance and the prosperity is more along the lines of our true self and can guide us and is there all the time. What I've also noticed is that in our journey, and part of the reason that this model, the 6 stages of financial wealth and well-being, I think are so important, is it is very, very helpful to have an idea of where we want to go. And we get really stuck in the the comfort zone of life, the things that are working for us, and we don't realize that there's so much more. And this isn't from a place of like hustle and grind and just like plow through life, but the idea that there is more possibility for us. Thank you, Yolanda, for being here. As can't believe it's so late, sorry. So yeah, conscious freedom, physical stress and limitation. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that we are the creators of that reality. And one of the ways that we get out of that way of thinking is by setting a course for ourselves. Here's where I'm at and here's where I want to go. And desire is a really important part of this journey. One of the things when I was practicing meditation and Buddhism many years ago was I was kind of emptying out all of the desire. But what I realized is that the human desire, especially when it's fueled by love, creates amazing things on the planet. Desire, when it's fueled by shadows or by anger or by feeling not enough, does not fuel the greatest things in life. And so when we can get in touch with our love state and create from that place and create a plan from that place, that's when the magic really happens in our lives. What I've also been doing for the past 30 years, I haven't gone so much into my experience, but I will say this. Throughout my life, I have been focused on paying a lot of attention to money. For many years, it came from a place of just like more is better. But especially over this past 20 years, what I have learned is that it wasn't just about the money. It was also about what was happening right inside of me. And that I needed to start with me and then give myself time to have that come out and translate into my relationship with money and also how I bring money into my life, the choices I make, and the decisions I make. What I have found is that when we create wealth from these inner states of awareness, shedding the things that hold us back and creating a plan. So this is kind of mapped out here, knowing where we want to go, tuning into desire, noticing what stops you, noticing what you need to do differently so you can create more value in the work that you do, in the jobs that you keep, in the investing that you do, like asking yourself that question, then creating a custom fit plan for you is all it takes. Like these 4 steps are pretty much all you need to do if you want to create more abundance in your life. The challenge is that many people give up when you hit roadblocks, when you hit challenges, when you hit difficulty. And the difference between what I have done and what I see a lot of people do is I am willing to try and try and try and fail and fail and fail. And yet, even though that's happening all the while, I'm able to see the failures as an opportunity for a breakthrough. And I take that breakthrough, and ultimately, those become my successes. It's really interesting because what most folks think is when you're failing, that that's the end. I look at failure as a temporary experience, and I just keep moving forward. Not that that's easy, not that I like it that way, but I just notice that that is something that allows us to create the things that we most want. We become comfortable with whatever transformation, with whatever obstacles come up in our lives. And so when people want to make big changes and they come and work with me, one of the big things that I've learned that is the value of what my company Wealth Clinic does is we meet you wherever you're at. We invite you to accept and allow yourself fully, completely where you are. And then we start to find opportunities of steps that you can take in your life, baby steps that we hold you in the space of being accountable and knowing that it's okay that it doesn't all go perfectly and smoothly. And we don't always live in a world where we can feel supported in that way. As a financial advisor for several years, as a certified financial planner, part of the reason I left that profession was I couldn't do that in that role, not in the way that we do at Wealth Clinic now in helping people over years. And going back to this wish or this desire or this intention I shared about setting up, helping and facilitating folks to see their abundance and be able to take those steps. In the course of this past 5 years, there have been several people who have met that $1 million mark doing these practices. So that gives me great inspiration that even though it doesn't happen right away, and maybe what happened was the first 3 years, it was like, I don't think this is working. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 years have just been crazy growth, because that's kind of how money works. It's really fascinating how we kind of have to give up the expectation and know that we're going to keep showing up. Maybe without the positive reinforcement. Maybe that's also why it's great to be a part of a community who supports you, because I think that there's a tendency to think, oh, I must not be doing it right because I'm not seeing the results that I need to see in a short amount of time. We've created a process called Envision Planning Process that we help people, and we continue to refine this process and make it more and more easy to implement. But what we found is we're doing this 90-day Envision planning process. So we did it in January with a group of 45 people, where we did a retreat for 2.5 days. And we're going to be doing that same retreat again, not this weekend, but next weekend, where we're going to dive into the Envision planning process and guide you through this very experiential process that helps you create a custom fit plan, along with this support by myself and other mentors who have been doing this work for a while, so that you can become, very oriented to what you want to create, have a plan, know what you need to do. And that's what this weekend that we're setting up to host next week. I will also mention that all of the work, and we haven't gotten into it so much here, is about blending. It's like a pathway that blends the yin and the yang together. I think it's truly unique. I've not seen anyone do it the way that we're doing, but we're looking at both the inner work and the practical experiences with money. So what am I looking to shift? What are the obstacles standing in my way? And then what are the practical actions that I can take in my life to start investing, to start budgeting, not because you feel restricted, but because you have a spending plan that's based on your values. How can I use things like emotional freedom technique to break through the blocks that hold me back, and the next day be able to go and, score a new client at a double the price that I was charging, 2 weeks ago? Like, what does that take? Knowing that we are our own most limited resource until we turn the tide in the direction of how can I support myself? How can I create $1 million in value in my life? And so part of what we wanted to do was share that this was happening next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was sharing with my community the other day that it was a test for us to do these retreats. Normally they happen here in Sedona or in Hawaii, but because of COVID, we've been doing some retreats virtually. But I think as things start to open up, I'm not sure that we'll continue to do these because they're a lot of work to set up. But we're going to do it again one more time and kind of see what happens. Maybe again next January, but in the fall, I hope to be hosting some retreats in Sedona. So watch for that. But it's all about giving you incredible resources, support. We're going to be sharing about that. I'll also mention you can sign up for the retreat for $97. We're also doing something where if you want to attend and bring a friend, so you sign up for $97 for the weekend, you can invite a friend to attend for free. So that's pretty cool. Zoom supports a bigger group, so that's awesome. And we love to have more people being introduced to this work. I promise you that this is like the most low cost possible thing that I could ever provide to the world. Like the idea is that we want to make some investment because we take things that we invest in seriously, and we're taking this super seriously. We've been working for 3 months from what was a really successful retreat to even make it better this time around. So that's happening. But we also welcome you to, instead of doing just the retreat, joining the Mindful Millionaire Collective, where we have these kinds of conversations several times a month with lots of different coaching support. And we're offering that up. So if you come to the retreat and you want to try the Mindful Millionaire for a month, it's the same price, which is really cool. Gives you an opportunity to see if you want to be surrounded by like-minded people who can help support your journey, help you to take those micro steps to transformation with your money, with your abundance, and with your prosperity. There are some links that Jessica has posted here. I'll let you look at those. We'll send you out a note. We'll also send, like I said, the replay out, so you'll have time to kind of check out the options. The other piece is that I just kind of spent a few minutes thinking about like what's happened for people over this past 5 years. Again, if you've read my book, you have some ideas, but we've seen people save hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a home and other assets. We've seen folks create financial plans so they can be debt-free before retirement. We hear stories on a regular basis about paying off $50,000 more dollars of debt in a very short amount of time. Buying first home, investing in real estate, consolidating debt, sleeping soundly at night, no longer worrying about money, starting a business. I'm also a business coach. I kind of divide my time between the money coaching and the business coaching. There's a lot of overlap in that world, those two worlds. We need to be really good with our money in order to be an entrepreneur. And so we see that overlap. But let's see, what was my other slide? I love this quote. I love Ryan Holiday's work, The Obstacle is the Way. He says, in every situation, life is asking us a question, and our actions are the answer. So the big difference, I think, between other folks who do self-development as it pertains to like law of attraction or abundance is a lot of them don't have a 25-year history of becoming a multimillionaire on my own. Just to be clear, like I have been on this journey since 1995 when I decided I wanted to become a millionaire. My husband and I did that by within 10 years. We've continued to increase our wealth, doubling our wealth, close to doubling our wealth in the past 5 years. I speak only from experience, but I have a lot of different experience in real estate, in stock market investing, in budgeting and planning and all of these things as a certified financial planner. It's just a very unusual combination, but we would love to have you consider joining us for either the retreat or the membership. And I think that was it. The more we understand the flow of our energy and follow a process that helps us release the condition of scarcity, the more empowered we become, not just with money, but in creating the life we really want to live. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much.